everybody, and welcome into episode 34 of the H&M Trucking podcast. I am your host, Marcus, and thank you all so much for being here today. We appreciate all the clicks, all the likes, all the subscribes, and all the love that we get from all of you out there in the H&M family and beyond. Today's episode is a little bit off the cuff. I'll call it that. It's going to be a little different than what you've heard from our past interviews, or our past episodes, excuse me. Typically, we pack these things with as many interviews as we can. We try to get as much information out to you guys as possible. But today, we had the opportunity to talk to a dispatcher and a driver duo. Now, that dispatcher, who's Tim Krueger, who you all know from JFL, he's been on this podcast many times. He's no longer a dispatcher, but he told me about a great relationship that he has with driver Tom Woods, and he said, hey, I'd love to get on the podcast with him and just talk a little bit and kind of show off that relationship so that maybe some other drivers and some other dispatchers might want to come on and have the same kind of conversation. It was a great idea, and I give all credit to Tim Krueger for coming up with it because I'm really excited about it. These guys, they kind of fight like brothers a little bit. You know, they have that real push-pull relationship that a driver and a dispatcher have where they love each other to death, but they probably hate each other a little bit too. And it's not a hate that comes from any type of, bad situation. It's the fact that you're working every day with somebody, you build that relationship. It's that the hate part of the love-hate relationship is the hate that you have for your brother. You do absolutely anything for him except for lay across a mud puddle so he doesn't get his shoes dirty. You're going to push him down into that mud puddle so you don't get your shoes dirty and then help him up on the other side of it. It's like that. And I can't wait to get these guys on the podcast here a little bit later in this episode and just hear some of the stories that come from working together in that driver-dispatcher relationship, that whole dichotomy, if you will. You like that? Pulled out a real big word today. I don't even know if I used that one right. I'm going to have to hit up Wikipedia later. Anyway, we're also going to talk to somebody who would know if I use that word right. That's going to be Connie Tran. Connie Tran of 2 master's degrees. We were planning on doing a mental health episode for this episode and having the whole thing kind of surround mental health. Unfortunately, I don't have a driver-dispatcher relationship with a practicing mental health specialist. I tried to get a couple different mental health specialists on this program from just the world at large, people that either say they specialize in the mental health of truckers or doctors that have had certain experience. I reached out to one doctor, Dr. Neely. Her husband was a truck driver for a long time, so she actually kind of specializes in helping truck drivers out with their mental health. But she stonewalled me. Just cold, hard no-show. Well, not no-show. She just didn't even call back. She didn't even write back. I got nothing from her. As far as I know, she's in the Bermuda Triangle in a boat that's spinning around a whirlpool right now. All jokes aside, I'm not wishing any ill will towards her. She's a doctor. She's busy. She doesn't have time to come on this podcast. But Connie Tran, who actually got her master's degree in psychology and now works in the HR department at H&M, did have time. And she is coming up a little bit later here on the podcast as well. Actually, we're probably going to get to her next. And I'll tell you right now, Connie is a great resource for those of you working at H&M. And I think you'll learn that when we get into the conversation with her. So kind of a hodgepodge of an episode this week. But it's going to be fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. I also have the American Transportation Research Institute's report of, what do they call this thing? Critical issues in the trucking industry in 2023. They take big polls from all of these employees that they have throughout the trucking and transportation industry. They find out the top 10 things that are weighing on the industry right now, according to the people that are working within it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, let's get to this interview with my new friend, Connie.
From Omaha, Nebraska, to whatever lane you're driving, this is the H&M Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
I'm always making new friends here on the H&M Trucking Podcast, and one of my new friends is HR Specialist Connie Tran. You heard her on our benefits and open enrollment episode a couple of weeks ago, and she did so good I had to bring her back right away. Connie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to hear from you again.
Well, see, now you tell Eve that, because she said that you were her friend and that she wasn't bringing you to be my friend, but I feel like we've struck up something of a friendship already.
Yeah, she's pretty good at getting people together.
Well, the reason I wanted to have you on this week, this is kind of a fun episode, and we're kind of, moving around, but I thought it would be a good idea to get to know you a little bit and, hear a little bit about your background, especially because most of the people I have on here, we go through some sort of background, we get to know them a little bit, and it didn't really happen for you that way the last time you were on. We just kind of threw you to the wolves and started getting nuts and bolts and real meat and potatoes type stuff from you. So tell me a little bit about, your education, how you came to work for H&M, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I originally went to school to be a therapist. So I, after college, I went to graduate school to get my master's in mental health. So I did that for a while. And then when I graduated, I decided that I did not want to be a full-time therapist. I did a little practice on the side, felt like it wasn't for me. And then some family tragedy happened. And so I decided that I was going to go back to school to get a business degree. So I went and got my master's in business and emphasis on in HR. So here I am today, just pursuing the HR career.
So am I to understand this correctly, that you have 2 master's degrees, Connie?
I do.
That's awesome. There's very few people that I know of that have 2 master's degrees.
It's just a extra thing, extracurricular activity, I guess. It was not a fun thing to try to get 2 masters, but unfortunately it was something I needed to do. So,
sure.
I did it.
Now, you said you practice a little bit as a therapist on the side. It's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in here today, because I didn't know that we had somebody with, real world experience and real world education as far as, therapy was concerned. We talk a lot about mental health on this program, and I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about the mental health side of trucking. When you were in practice, did you deal with any truck drivers or have any of them in to get some service from you?
To be honest with you, I have not dealt with any truck drivers. So when I did a little bit of practice, the short amount of time that I did, I focused a lot on family therapy. So a lot of stuff with minors, stuff with child abuse and divorce and things like that. Rarely do I deal with people in the trucking industry. I would say most truckers aren't going to seek out mental health help. So, it's always been a stigma. I do recognize that. So, no, I have not worked with truckers before.
Do you know why it's a stigma in the trucking industry, or at least from your educated and practiced perspective? Can you make any guesses as to why there's that stigma that kind of surrounds the truck driving industry and getting mental health aid?
Well, mental health has always been around. It's people recognize it. It's it's a hot topic. It's also a very popular and new topic. And a lot of truck drivers are not very into that kind of mental health aspects. A lot of them don't think about, wanting to talk about their feelings, wanting to talk about what's going on in their life. They kind of have that mentality like, it's my business, I deal with it. I don't need a professional to tell me how to live my life. And there's definitely much more to mental health than just that. But, it's not something that most truck drivers are going to approach. They're very more closed off. It's very personal. It's not something that they will seek out help. I know that a lot of truck drivers deal with a lot of mental health issues, and they will not seek help for that. They will try to, fix it themselves.
Right. Kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps type mentality there. I've definitely noticed that. Yep. And, if there's one thing I can say about it, and this comes from somebody that's a victim of that type of mindset as well. Okay. I'm not somebody that is prone to seek out mental health aid when I have a problem. I'm more of the I can fix it myself type person. And it's been hard for me to sort of let go of that as I've gotten older and understand that there are professionals out there that will really help me along.
Right.
But, you said it there when you were talking about it, that there's more to mental health than just seeing a therapist and talking to somebody else. A little bit of exercise, a little bit better diet, those types of things, better sleep can all aid in your mental health, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Mental health is all of the aspect of you as an individual. It's not just about what you think and how you feel. I would say it's definitely a holistic kind of point of view. It has to do with your mentality, your health, where you're in life, what you're doing, your feelings, your thoughts, everything. It's not just about your feelings. Like, it's very much a whole person kind of view.
Mm-hmm. Now, from the standpoint of helping out families, can you talk to me a little bit about maybe some tips that you could give some truck drivers in, maintaining those good family relationships while they spend so much time on the road? I talk to so many drivers here that, some of them will be out for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. And while some of those drivers are, they don't necessarily have a wife or kids or families that they're looking to get back to, a lot of them do. And I imagine just keeping in touch with the family is probably a big part of that. But is there anything else that they can do to help maintain strong family relationships while they're on the road, Connie?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say this is also another kind of like a hard thing, like hard place to give an advice to, because everybody's family dynamics are different. Mm-hmm. Some people don't have a good relationship with their family. Some people don't necessarily have any family. It just really dependent on the person individually. But obviously, if you do have a family and you're out on the road, it's always good to keep in communication, whether or not it's just a text here and there, like, good morning, good night, how are you doing? Did you eat lunch? Just be in contact with your loved ones, even if it's just like a little reminder, just a simple text. Just keep your loved ones in the loop so you don't feel like you're all alone, all by yourself out on the road. If you don't have any family or anybody that you're close to, some people like to join groups online, immerse themselves in like connections on like social media, reach out to a friend, join a book club. Do something that interests you. Do something so that you feel more connected to the world. A lot of truck drivers, I would assume, are going to be more isolated. A lot of them probably feels isolated because they're by themselves in the truck for hours at times, and they're out for weeks at a time. They don't get to be interactive with a lot of people. So finding out things that you enjoy, like a hobby, or things that just finding things that interest you and then immerse yourself into it. Get connected to the world so you don't feel like you're all alone.
Yes, 100%. I've worked from home some in my professional career, and you hear people say, "Oh, work from home," and they think, "Oh, that's awesome. I get to be home all day. I get to take care of stuff around the house while I'm working. I get to work on my own schedule." Look, there are benefits to it, but one thing that I found that was very serious in my tenure working from home was, man, I do feel alone. I don't feel like I've got somebody here to always talk to, even though I'm communicating with people from work. Those people live all the way across the country from me, and it started to be a thing where my wife came home one day and she's like, every day about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, you give me a call or you text me or you just reach out. Is there a reason for that? And honestly, it's a lot like what you just said. I just want to stay connected. I know that you're just down the street. I know you'll be home at 5:30 or 6, but I kind of thirst for that social interaction a little bit. And it did wonders for me to just reach out and say hi to her each day. And so I think there's something that can be learned from that, at least in, that little anecdote. staying connected is great for your mental health, even if it's just a friend, even if it's just a text, even if it's real quick, it will help you in the long run.
Right. And we're, as humans, we are wired to be connected. We want to be in a group, in a cohort. We're not loners. We're not meant to be like solitude creatures. So even if you like your alone time, it's not healthy for you to be alone all the time. You definitely want to have your alone time, but you definitely want to have friends or family or some sort of connection to the world so you don't feel like you're isolated.
This is such great stuff, Connie. I really appreciate it. I'm up against the clock here a little bit, so I'm going to let you get back to work. But before I do, is there anything that you would like to say as either an HR specialist at H&M or somebody that has a little bit of health experience in the mental health field to the drivers that might be listening today before I let you go?
Yeah, just is that even though I'm an HR specialist now, I'm not a therapist anymore. I am still here to, help out. If anybody wants to, call and chit chat or need help on anything, all you have to do is give me a call. I am available to just talk to you if you need an ear to listen to.
That's awesome, Connie. Thank you so much for being here. HR specialist from H&M, Connie Tran. I'm sure we'll get you back on the show very soon.
Thank you for having me.
Great stuff there from Connie Tran, HR specialist for H&M Trucking. Don't forget that you can call her, all right? If you're struggling with mental health, if you just need somebody to talk to, Connie said it right there in her interview. She is there. And also, I don't want you to forget about the hotline, okay? We've talked about this on this podcast before, so I'm just going to mention it here real quick, and I won't bog anybody down with this, but the hotline for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is 988. It used to be this long 1-800 number. You don't have to do that anymore. 988 on your phone, and you will be connected with someone that can help you. So please remember to utilize these resources that you have at H&M to make sure that you're getting everything sorted out and you're at your absolute best out there so that you can stay safe and get home to the ones you love. Now on to the American Transportation Research Institute's top 10 issues facing the trucking industry in 2023. This is a pretty cool thing. ATRI's 2023 Top Industry Issues Report utilizes a robust data collection initiative. This is a comprehensive list of issues and related counter strategies that were initially identified in collaboration with multiple freight stakeholder groups. ATRI then conducted a single large-scale survey distribution using its own contact database of over 32,000 contacts in the industry. They also use their regular Sirius and XM radio shows, major trucking industry trade press, truck driver groups, and through the 50 state trucking associations. The 2023 survey that we're going to read from here launched on August 28th, 2023, and was open for responses throughout the month and into September 29th of 2023. So a lot of people coming to ATRI and telling them, hey, I'm involved in the industry, and this is what I think is a top issue. Participants were asked to select the 3 top issues. Those were then sorted out by first, second, and third place votes and then weighted accordingly. So getting to it now, we'll start at number 10 and work our way through the list. I'm not going to stop on every single one of these because I think some of them are kind of self-explanatory. But number 10 on the top issues facing the trucking industry right now, zero-emission vehicles. There's a lot of legislation going on. A lot of people are trying to put the cart before the horse on this one and let the tail wag the dog and all of those other little fantastic idioms and phrases that we can use to describe trying to push out legislation because it looks good so that you can get elected during the next cycle as a politician, but not really thinking about the infrastructure that's needed to support such legislation. So that's all I'll say about that one. Number 9, detention and delay at customer facilities. This one was interesting to see on here because obviously it's something that I hear a lot of drivers get kind of frustrated with. It's like the market is a little bit slow out there. Freight's not necessarily at the top level, so you're running it cheap, and now you're having to sit there and twiddle your thumbs for God knows how long at a receiver waiting for another load. Now, detention and delay at customer facilities experienced the largest drop in ranking among the top 10 issues this year, down to number 9 overall from number 6 in the 2022 survey. A drop in rankings might be a function of softened freight demand, which can reduce the time spent loading and unloading freight. That's what the ATRI says. Driver retention is coming in at number 8. Obviously, people are looking for the best possible way to make a buck right now, and some of these companies that are offering a little bit more pay and sacrificing maybe the treatment of their drivers or maybe the equipment that they're running, they're going to see some pretty good drivers leave some pretty good companies, because money is the reason that we're all here at the end of the day. Like, we want to get the freight from point A to point B. We want to get home safe and all that. But we also got to put food on the plate and electricity in the sockets. Coming in at number 7 is driver distraction. Now, this first appeared on the top 10 list in 2014, ranking 10th overall. It rose to a peak of 7th overall in 2018 and then did not make the top 10 list again until this year. This is important. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reports that 3,522 people were killed in traffic crashes in 2021 that were found to be distraction-affected crashes, and 410 of those individuals died in crashes involving at least one driver who was engaged in cell phone use activities. Not anything else for me to say about that. You guys know what that's all about. Number 6 is lawsuit abuse reform. Look, we all heard about that big thing that happened down in New Orleans where they were crashing trucks last year, and they were suing the companies, and millions of dollars were getting put in the wrong pockets. I think it's understandable why that shows up on the list at number 6. Number 5, driver compensation. Yeah, the market's down. People aren't getting paid what they should be right now. Maybe they're not making as much as they think they should be. Freight's just not paying out. Obviously, shippers are having to really cut their rates down. Everybody is. This is a bummer, all right? I'm not going to spend too much time hanging on it, because everybody knows that everybody out there, all the drivers, would like to make some more money. Juxtaposed with number 4, that seems a little bit strange, especially when we talk about driver retention coming in on the list, because number 4 is driver shortage. Well, if we're short drivers, and why can't we retain drivers, and why aren't we paying drivers more? These 3 issues kind of run all in the same neck of the woods, I'll put it. I don't know that I'm educated enough on what's going on in the freight market to actually speak to this, so I'm not going to go on too long. I think we all know everybody would like to make more money for doing what they do, especially if they do a very good job and have a spotless record doing so. Between driver retention, driver pay, and driver shortage, I think it's no surprise that all 3 of these show up in our top 10 lists of issues facing the trucking industry. Coming in at number 3 are fuel prices. We've talked about it on this podcast a few times, man. Diesel's over $6 a gallon in California, and I had a driver last week tell me that it was up to $7 a gallon in certain places in California. This was last year's number 1 concern on the top 10 list. So seeing it come in at number 3 means we ain't made very much progress on it, and I would love to see how we're going to make progress moving into the future, because this whole prices only go up thing just doesn't work when we're talking about diesel prices and moving all this freight that all of you drivers have to move. Coming in at number 2, this is one that I hear from a lot. Drivers are constantly bringing it up, and what's funny about this one is when the drivers do bring it up, they bring it up, but almost in a way that you don't really realize how it's actually affecting them out on the road. Truck parking is coming in at number 2. I talked a little bit with Scott Beals about this last week during our driver profile. I asked him, hey, why can't we just lay some concrete down on the side of the freeway and have spots to park trucks? He brought up some really good issues with that. Safety is a big one. Is it well lit? Is there security? Can females, for instance, feel safe? Are there facilities there, bathrooms, that type of thing? And then not only that, but you got to worry about you can't just slap down some blacktop on top of grass and think it's going to hold. multiple trucks weighing 80,000 pounds. It's not going to happen. So there's a lot that goes into it. But at the same time, I want to read you this here from ATRI. The lack of available truck parking first appeared as a top 10 overall concern in 2012, 11 years ago. It has been a top 5 issue since 2015, reaching its highest ranking this year as the number 2 concern overall. However, this issue had been identified as an industry concern as far back as 1992. That's a problem. That's a problem that we haven't addressed. That's a problem that we haven't fixed. And that's a problem that is going to continue to climb the rankings until it is number 1, maybe even next year. Let's figure this out, okay? Because Scott Beals also told me last week he had to pay $28 for a parking spot at a truck stop in Atlanta. And he got there, he paid his $28, and he was just getting parked. And then he got a phone call from where he needed to be, and he had to turn around and go back. And then it meant that he probably had to go back to that same parking lot later that night so he could take his break. And guess what? $28 off of the debit card there again for a parking spot. So, look, it doesn't matter who's paying for it. If H&M's paying for it, if the driver's paying for it, somebody's paying for it. And that's ridiculous, all right? All we need is places to park these things. I've seen them make a lot of stuff work that's not necessarily safe, like on-ramp and off-ramp parking. It's illegal in some states. Let's get them a place to park that's safe and secure because we need them out there. That's not a fact that's up for debate, right? And coming in at number 1, I don't have a drum roll button. I wish I did, but it's the economy. We all kind of saw that one coming. Concern over the state of the nation's economy rose 4 spots this year to be the top-ranked industry issue. From inflation, rising interest rates, and diesel prices to reduced freight demand and declining rates, the economy impacts motor carriers and drivers alike, showing up as a top 10 concern for both. The outlook for the remainder of the year remains uncertain, given challenges like the impact on consumer spending from resumption of student loan payments and the temporary stopgap funding of the federal government, which is set to expire in November. There's your top 10 list. And it's getting hairy out there, guys. I really appreciate all of you for sticking this out and still being here, not only listening to this podcast, but actually out moving the freight, doing the Lord's work, as we would say here on this podcast. Hats off to all of you drivers out there. This top 10 list of issues that you're facing are issues that you will have to think about every single day. And that is really the defining factor when it comes to an issue that needs to be resolved. And I think all 10 of these that we've just gone over could use some real focus because the ATRI is not just putting this out because it makes them feel good. I think the point is putting this out, polling the community, finding out what's wrong, and then hopefully looking for a solution. But you got to wait for daddy government to put on its boots and get to work here. So let's cross our fingers and hope that happens faster than the glacial pace that it is typically formulated at. That's it for your top 10 issues facing the trucking industry. I'm so excited about this next interview. We've got Tim Krueger and Tom Woods coming up at the same time. Get ready to laugh. Very excited about this next segment here on the H&M Trucking Podcast. Joining me now are 2 different employees for H&M. One of them you've heard from a lot. We've got Tim Krueger from JFL here today. Tim, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on again, Marcus. It's always a pleasure.
Now, you were a recruiter before you got involved with, a dispatcher before you got involved with JFL. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's kind of the whole thing behind this today because we've also got H&M driver Tom Woods here with us today. Tom, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me this evening.
We really appreciate you being here. Now, this is something that you guys are throwing me a bone here and doing me a favor because I've wanted to get some dispatchers and some drivers on for a while. The dispatchers at H&M have been a little bit gun shy about coming on the podcast, and I understand that. But Tim, I was talking to you the other day and you're like, hey, I got a great relationship with one of the guys I used to dispatch for. Let me come on and talk about it. So here you are. How long did you guys work together, Tim?
I believe, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been about a year and a half, and I think you were crying when I left, as I recall.
Yeah, I had to go get a bottle and some diapers, you know.
Now, you guys have a special relationship. I understand. I can already hear it. In fact, when I called you up, Tom, I told you I was going to conference Tim in. You called him a knucklehead, but in a loving way, like a older brother would call him a knucklehead.
Oh, yeah.
How did you guys build your relationship? How does that thing kind of blossom? Are there bumps in the road? Is it hard to establish that relationship starting out from driver and dispatcher, or is it something that just kind of shows up and you know it's there from the word go?
Tom, do you want to take that one? Do you want to tell your side of the story on how you got on my board?
Well, oh yeah, the story about Tim Krueger. Tim is a thief, okay? Tim likes to sneak you in and do little shady stuff on the side, and you wind up being where you don't really think you want to be, but at the end, it's really a great deal. I'm calling in. I'm one of those drivers that likes to call in and talk to my dispatchers and make sure that I'm doing my job correct and getting all the information I need to get. And sometimes you get a little, you're out there on the road, you want to talk about some things. You got some things on your mind. So I was talking to Tim, and every time I would call, I'd call my dispatcher. Well, Tim would answer. I mean, it was like a whole week of this. I was like, it was a Thursday morning. I was like, man, all I do is get you to answer my phone. I might as well just be on your board as a joke. And I get a phone call like at 2:00 in the afternoon, and it's like, hey, Tom, you're on my board now. And my dispatcher calls me mad at me because I done fired his butt, went over to Tim, but I didn't fire my dispatcher. Tim stole me from him. That's how that worked.
Yeah, I'm grinding my teeth over here because that's not how it went, but, on my end, it's part of that is true. He was calling in and, the call would roll over to me because his dispatcher was on the phone with another driver, and, we're a team here, so we all help out when we can. And then, he said that statement that, hey, I mean, you're answering my phone call. Why don't I just get put on your board? So I went to the manager at the time, and I was like, hey, Tom just said this. I'm good with it. I feel like I'm comfortable enough to handle all of his problems. And 5 minutes later, I get an email, and he's on my board. So our relationship kind of kicked off from there, and we had a great working relationship before I took that role at JFL. So that's kind of how it all got going.
It was a really good deal, man. It really turned out to be really great.
That's good. So you didn't have to fight off your old dispatcher for long. Were they ready to get rid of you, or was it something where Tim, you had to deal with a little bit of blowback on that?
Well, I don't think there's a repercussion on that deal. Not at all. I think what happened was just that, sometimes if you got a dispatcher, sometimes it's either going to work or it's not going to work, and you're going to butt heads a little bit. As of always, me and Tim butt heads a little bit, but at the end of the day, Tim is one of the best dispatchers I think I've had ever. Like, for real. The man could. Get in a bind on a load that they tell you one thing, you go do that, and it's a whole other situation. But Tim steps in and says, hey, Tom, give me a minute. I'm going to get this taken care of. And the man will call you back in 10, 15 minutes, not 2 or 3 hours later because somebody done screwed up. We're talking about 10 or 15 minutes, but I got you a different load. You're headed down here to this and pick this load up and make it happen, I mean, it wasn't, oh, I screwed up. Let me try to fix this problem and spend 2 or 3 hours making my driver sit. Tim is one of those dispatchers. Let's get the job done. Let's get you loading. Let's get you moving. He will keep you moving.
Tim, for a knucklehead, Tom's got a lot of nice things to say about you.
Yeah. It's he treats me like family, and I appreciate that. I grew up with 2 older brothers, and we give each other a bunch of crap all the time. That's how Tom and I are. So we kind of fit that mold together to where we treat each other like family. And the situation Tom's talking about, he was stuck down on Louisiana, and they were saying, hey, wash out, or they said not wash out. He showed up and said he had to wash out. He was only going to be doing like a 500-mile load for the weekend. Wasn't a lot of miles. So I was just like, hold on, Tom. Like, we're not doing this. Like, I'm not putting up with this. And ended up finding him a load that got him all the way to California from Louisiana with long miles over the weekend. And he was tickled pink. He was giggling like, the Pillsbury Doughboy when you poke him in the stomach. So he was happy as can be. And, it's just one of those things, Miles mean a lot to these, to drivers, and, not just to just call them drivers. They're, everyone else here. We're all on the same page. We're all on the same level. No one's different. Everyone's a human being here. And that's how I treat it as such.
What kind of trust is involved in that relationship? Obviously, Tom, you're stuck in a place. You've got an issue. You're not liking what you've got coming back. You've got to have kind of some inherent trust in Tim that you don't need to be just hanging on the phone with him and directing him to what you want to do. He kind of already knows that. Is that correct? He just knows what you want and tries to make that happen for you?
Absolutely. So you got drivers, okay? You got these drivers out here that, man, they don't care if they get 2,000 miles a week or they get 1,200 miles a week. Then you got the drivers like me. I'm one of those drivers. I'm an overachiever. Keep me running. Let's run hard. Let's push it. Put the grind bone down. Let's get down the road. And Tim knows he's got those drivers that don't care, and he's got the drivers like me that want to get the job done. You know what I mean? That want the miles, wants to run hard. I could, if they'll let me, I'd run 5,000 miles a week. But that's a dream. That's a dream job. That's a dream miles there. But 3,000 miles a week is a really good week. I mean, a real good week. And if Tim knows that's what I'd run, and Tim will get me, go out there and look for those really good loads to get me down the road. You know what I mean? And like I said, when you got those drivers that want the less miles so they can sit and play around at the truck stops, and you got guys like me, I just rather stay running, so.
And Marcus, just to piggyback on that a little bit, when drivers or when dispatchers start out and you get drivers on your board, it's always good practice to, call them immediately, tell them what's going on, even if that's with the manager on the phone. But you set you ask them, hey, how do you like to run? What do you like to do? Where do you like to go? Where do you like to avoid? What do you enjoy most? And I think having that line of communication really benefits, because then you're actually working for that person. You're working for them to help them, to make them happy at H&M. So that was my big push. And any driver's ever been on my board, it's, I want to know if you have kids. I want to know your family. Like Tom, for instance, like I know his daughter. I know his daughter's husband. No, he has two nieces that, Tom just bought a house. They got rooms in his new home too. So, I know all the ins and outs of his family, and anyone who's ever on my board, I make sure I know their family. I know everything about them. So, we can have those personalized conversations and really get to know each other.
So, Tom, did you ever get sick of looking up from the dinner table and seeing Tim sitting across there? Because it sounds like he's really inserted himself into your family a little bit.
Well, actually, you don't call me late for dinner at all, because I love to eat. I do love to eat. It doesn't matter. Tim owes me 2 dinners right now. 2? And they are trying to avoid bringing me up there, because he's like, man, if you bring him up there, he's going to make me go broke, because we're going to go to top-notch 5-star steakhouse or the 5-star Fisher restaurant straight up. And Tim's just regretting doing that. That's why I haven't been back up that way. They've always kept me out east or down south, So, I'm gonna hang in there on that. But back to what you was talking about, going to certain places. And Tim knows, man, there's a lot of drivers that don't like to go to California. I beg to go to California to get loads going out there and do that stuff, because that's the farthest way you can go, and then you can work your way west is get a lot of miles. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, just don't let them back out saying, oh, I have 2. I own 1, and one of my employees owns them 1, because Tom got us in for a new customer that we've been doing a decent amount of freight with. So don't let him BS you around here today.
It's not me. He's not BSing me. He's trying to weasel 2 dinners out of you, dude. He can say whatever he wants to me.
Well, we get Tim to buy us both dinner, and then we won't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, it's true. I've been on Tim heavy about maybe a round of golf or something like that, but I'm good with dinner, man. The thing that I got introduced to when I came to Omaha the first time was the lunch steak. Out here in the Pacific Northwest, you could get a lunch steak, but it's not going to be good. You're going to have to go to like a Denny's. Every place that I went had like a serious, either like a ribeye or a sirloin on the menu for
Absolutely.
lunch. That's amazing. I mean, I would be, look, here's the deal, Tom. If he doesn't want to buy you 2 lunch or 2 dinners, how about a dinner and a lunch? Because you can still get that steak that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I hear you. You know, I'm going to tell you what, Tim's an all-out great dispatcher. He went to running a brokerage company.
Whatever he does.
And he does that. But I'm gonna tell you, we still talk all the time. He'll call me up. Hey, how do you like that load you're on right now? I said it's really a great load. He says, well, that's my load. I got that load for you. And I said, well, he's still in the works of making sure the drivers for H&M are getting work to run down the road, to pick up loads and get down the road and get things done.
For sure.
And Tim is looking after that. Hey, Tim ain't just looking after, I run this JFL. I'm running all these trucks out here for different companies. I don't care. I don't have to deal with you guys no more. No, he ain't like that. Tim's like, hey, you know what? I heard Tom needs a good run for the weekend. Let me see what I can do for him, and if it works out for H&M, you know what I mean? So that's Tim's always looking out for everybody, and he's a hard worker.
Well, and Tim, having a driver that is willing to actually go out to California and isn't going to curse your name for the entire trip for sending him out there, that's got to be pretty valuable too, as both working for JFL and as a dispatcher, I assume.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's I never hear these nice things from Tom ever, so it's a breath of fresh air, and makes you feel all good inside. And but yeah, no, it's anytime I can help out H&M. Obviously, they're JFL's parent company, and we're always actively looking for new areas for H&M to grow into, but also looking to revamp areas that they're already going into. We're always that's always our first go-to is, hey, how can we benefit H&M here? My whole sales team knows that. They understand that. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job to help H&M and keep their drivers moving.
I want to throw something in there about Tim. So how Tim become more family to me is I was hospitalized in 21 for COVID. And yes, I about died I was in the hospital for about a month. They put me on a ventilator. My daughter talked to Tim, and they become really good on the phone. My daughter's keeping Tim updated. Tim's keeping everybody at H&M and JFL updated. And Tim, I wake up after 2.5 weeks of being on a ventilator, and Tim's on the tablet. I'm laying there all strung out on drugs, from being on that stuff. I was crazy what they told me they put me on, but he's there talking to me. I mean, Tim took the time out of his life, and he didn't have to. He took the time out of his life to see how I was doing. I don't know Tim. I know Tim pretty well. I don't know if he would do that with any other driver. He might. He may not. I don't know his outlook on that. But I'm gonna tell you right now, he took the time to sit there and talk to me on FaceTime on a tablet while I was laying there in the hospital bed to tell me, hey, everything's going to be all right. He was making sure my dog was taken care of, because all this happened in Nebraska, and I did tell Tim I appreciate everything. Him and my daughter they like to pick on me a lot, so, and make jokes. So I'm good with that, and Tim is like a little brother that I kind of wish I had, I got some brothers, but Tim is one of those brothers I wish I had, just because he's just straightforward. And that's how I am. I'm black and white. You ask me, I'm going to tell you. If you don't want to hear the answer, don't ask Tom Woods. That's all I'm saying.
Tim, I'm sure you can attest to that. Yeah.
I was about to say that's about right. Yeah. God, Marcus, when I was FaceTiming with you, when we go out to dinner, me and Tom, and he's always, trying to flirt with the waitress and the wait staff. We've been to the Texas Roadhouse so many times in Council Bluffs that they know him by first name now. So we get him on FaceTime and he's awake. He's getting back to a little bit of normality there. And guess what he's doing? Hitting on the nurses there.
Yeah,
my guy.
Absolutely.
And I was like, you haven't missed a beat there, Tom.
Hey, they asked my daughter they did ask my daughter, because I don't remember my daughter showing up at the hospital. They did ask my daughter. My daughter says, "Well, which one of you going to marry my dad?" They started laughing. They said, "Oh, does he really do it?" She says that he will. She said the nurse said, "Yeah, he's hit on me and 10 other ladies come in here." I was like, "Hey, you never know, I let me tell you something. I love messing with women. You hear me? I don't care if they're married or if they're engaged or if they got a boyfriend named Tim Krueger. I don't care."
Yeah. He's very affectionate with my girlfriend.
If he treats her like trash, it will beat him.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you sharing that story with me, especially because it's hard to characterize a relationship, and I think that you guys did a great job there just talking about it. That's a really tough thing that you went through, Tom, and it sounds like having Tim there alongside just as some reassurance was something that you really needed while you were hanging out in the hospital. Right.
And, so let me tell you something. So I had to step down from driving a truck for H&M. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they didn't want to have me step down, but they didn't know if I was going to be able to come right back to driving. So they asked me to step down a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim. They wanted me to step down because I got out of the hospital, and I was like, well, give it 6 months, Tom, because, you got to get better. And I needed to work. So Tim's gets on the phone and said, "Hey, Tom, I found a hopper company out of Missouri for you." And he hooks me up with them. And they wanted to make sure I was going to be 100% better before I got back in H&M's truck. Mm-hmm. And so he gets out there, gets me a company over there in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Well, I run for them for a month. And I was like, "Man, Tim, I need to come back." He said, "Tom, they're not going to let you come back for 6 months, maybe to a year, because you know how you are. You got to." I said, "I'm doing pretty damn good." Well, we had another driver that passed away, God rest his soul. He told me out of his own mouth. He said, "Well, call Tim, ask him to ask somebody for you." He said, "The hell with that, just call the owner of the H&M company and tell him you want your damn job back." And I said, "Look, I want my damn job back." And Tim says, he calls me, he says, "I heard you's coming back." I said, "Yeah, I'm coming back." He said, "Well, that's great, man." He said, "We need you back here. You're a really good driver." So, just throwing that out there.
Well,
yeah, he called James directly. That's what he did.
You know what? That's something I think that's important to highlight, though, because how many companies does that happen at where you're going to get a direct line to the pocket of the guy at the top? And H&M has proven over and over again. We've talked about it on this podcast more times than I can count. That accessibility is very important to drivers and employees at the office alike. I mean, James sits right there in the middle of the game. There's some of these guys from stories I've heard in this industry that run trucking companies that you'll never even see. I mean, you'll get sick of James. You see him so much.
Yeah, that's the beauty of H&M, though. That you do have that direct line to James, and we treat you like a person here. You're not just a driver, you're a person. A lot of other companies you go to and you drive for, Tom, you might be able to attest to this. You'll call in, they'll ask for your truck number. They won't even ask for your name, who you are. They won't even probably know who you are. That's what you get at some of those bigger fleets. But, here it's, we're a little on the smaller end. So, we try and put that touch of, humility in there, and, we want to know who you are. And I think that goes a long way here.
And then if you got to call him or talk to him, it's usually something pretty important, and I notice he steps in sometimes to correct people, like, correct me policies change, and the way they change them is sometimes maybe I didn't understand or the other driver didn't understand. You got two drivers out there talking about it, and he's upset. Then he makes me upset, or he makes the other driver upset, and then I'm get to thinking about it, thinking, well, maybe did I miss something? And James will get on the phone and correct you and say, hey, this is how it works, Tom. We're going to email you that new policy. We're going to show you how it works, and that's how it works. And it's really the same how they kind of told you, but they changed it a little bit for you to understand easier. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
On the business side.
It's like a policy where you tell a customer you're going to dump their product in the Denver streets. Do you remember that one, Tom?
That was a joke. That was a joke. I literally lost my $500 bonus that month because a guy went and called my dispatcher and told them that I was going to dump their product down Main Street of Denver, Colorado. And I was not ever thinking about doing that.
Now, you might not have been thinking about doing it, but here's my question. Did you tell him you were going to do that?
Laughing and joking about it.
Some people don't have that perception, Tom. You know that now, right?
Yes. And let me tell you something. When I go to repeating customers, and I'm not joking, they love my personality. Like when you got that best personality and that lady's behind the counter telling you, oh my God, Mr. Woods, we are glad to see you back. What can we do to help you? And I'm telling you about this just happened in Richmond, Indiana. The security guard's like, hold on a minute. And she's like on the phone, hey, he has not got no attitude. He says he'll go to the truck stop. We're going to take care. Boy, they got, they took care of me. They just told me to go to the truck stop and hang out there because you're not allowed to park on the premises no more. So they went and hung out there, and she'd call me, like she told me she'd call me at 6 o'clock in the morning the next morning, let me know what's going on. 6 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. Mr. Woods, we're still on broke down. We're going to get with you. We're going to get you in there as soon as we can. That the attitude that I give our customers, they like that because every time I go in there, all I hear is, well, the last driver was in here. He was cussing and raising hell about everything not going his way. And there's nothing we can do about it, but we're not going to tolerate it.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to remember in all walks of life, you make more friends with honey than you do vinegar. All you have to do is show up with a smile. You might be having a bad day, but can you slap a smile on and treat people with respect? It's probably going to go a long way for you out there on the road.
Yes, it will. And I'm going to say it, I'm not a perfect driver. I am 100% the best driver out there, and I try to do everything safe 100% every day because I can't give it no 105. I can't do it. I'm definitely not going to do 99%, but I am going to give you 100% of safety out there and do my job 100% correct. But yes, there's times that I have my bad days because when you're driving down the road, you're also analyzing everything. You're analyzing your truck you're driving, or people around you. You're also analyzing hey, I got to take care of this when I get home. I got to pay this bill. And, wow, did I get these miles this week? Did I get the miles I've had? And, you're analyzing this stuff. And then sometimes you might get a little upset, a little pissed off. You might get a little attitude with your dispatcher. That happens. It's the trucking industry. But let me tell you what, I've done that with Tim, and Tim has like, Tom, this weekend let's calm down. It's Friday. Give me till 3 o'clock. We're going to get you some good miles. And then 99% of the time, Tim would get those loads. Hey, I got you 1,100 miles this weekend. You're going to deliver Monday. And wind up at the end of the week having 2,900, 3,200 miles around in there. That's when the industry was doing real good,
Sure. Sure. So, Tim, I think that one of the things that Tom's saying there is that you have to remember, especially when you're a dispatcher, I would assume, that everybody's fighting a battle that you don't know everything about each and every day. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that you face as a dispatcher, I would assume.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's you don't know. Some of these guys go into facilities and they're treated like second-class citizens. They'll give you a porta potty out there that hasn't been emptied in 3 weeks.
Oh.
You can't use the bathrooms on the inside. There's no parking hardly ever. you don't know what's going on personally in there, and you know, a driver who calls in and, you know, what's going on. So it's just always being, you know, patient, especially when you got someone in, you know, cussing like Tom every single day.
Yeah,
nah, he doesn't. But when those hard conversations come up and the difficult ones, you know, it's just, you know, reiterating, hey, it's going to be fine. Like, you don't know what guy just cut him off and they had to slam on the brakes and they get brake checked by guys who, you know, drivers like you and I out there, Marcus, but who don't know how much they're hauling, you know, how much damage they can cause because you know, we're trying to be a tough guy and you slammed on your brakes on them. So having that patience, I think, has helped me and benefited me, helping, you know, all drivers I've managed, you know, in the past, just making sure I had that patience with them. So, you know, especially with Tom, it's, you know, I'd let him yell at me. You know, I always told him, you know, hey, if someone pisses you off, you know, out there at the shipper or the receiver, call me, yell at me. Like, I'll take it. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I don't want you to get in trouble because, you know, you said something to a shipper or receiver. You know, sometimes it's, you know, I always try to tell Tom, it's like, hey, don't yell at them. Go, okay, come back to the truck and then vent to me. Like, I'll always listen. I'll be there to be that, you know, that ear for you, because that would be frustrating. Like, I can't tell you how frustrated I get in traffic, you know, and I'm not hauling 80,000 pounds on me. So, you know, it's just always being there for that person. You know, it's not only just Tom, it's everyone I've managed. You know, it's always available, always willing to listen. So I always felt that helped.
You guys ready for this one? I got to bring this back up to Tim because it's just the most funniest thing ever.
Oh,
so I'm in, where's that place in Nevada? With Bill and me and you, he was on the phone.
Oh yeah, Bill was on the phone.
What was that? Where was we at? What was we at there? Fernley, Nevada. We was in Fernley, Nevada, and I'm at the pump. I just pulled up the pump, and this skinny old man's walking to me. Is your pump working? Is your pump working? And I was like, I don't know. Who the hell are you? And I know my damn pump's not working. Just give me a second. I just got out of the truck. So I'm running all my cards and the system's down. It ain't H&M system on their end down. It's just the T-Check system was down for the car to be able to get fuel. He's got his phone. I don't know who the hell he's talking to. I said, you work for H&M? He said, yeah, I work for H&M. I said, what sorry ass dispatcher do you got? Guess who it was? Tim Krueger. Oh my God. And I'm not joking. My phone rang literally 2 seconds after I got off the phone and said, did you just call Tim a sorry ass dispatcher? And that was coming from the head up lady, the boss lady. I was like, huh? I was just joking. Oh, no, Tom. Well, that was hilarious. And I thought I'd get in trouble for saying something. She was laughing, and then she had everybody in the other office saying, did you hear what Tom said on the phone? So you got to watch what you say to other drivers, because you might just be on the phone. He might just be on the phone with the dispatcher trying to help him get through his stuff, you know?
And Tim, it's all about how you hear it, right? All you heard, he might have said what kind of sorry ass dispatcher you've got, but what you heard is that Tim, he's just an A1 gentleman. He's always here for me, right?
Yep, exactly that.
Yes.
About those dinners, Tom.
Yeah, you know. Oh yeah, man. We'll meet up. They'll ask everybody at the yard knows that, hey, Tom Woods is going to go to either Texas Roadhouse or go to the Blue Sushi. One of the two. Usually it's Texas Roadhouse because I can park my truck outside there in that big old parking lot and then get it all set up and then go in and eat, have me a few drinks and go back out there and go to bed. And I have said that a million times, and that's why I guess everybody at H&M really likes me, because they know I'm not going to sugarcoat something. They know that Tom Woods is going to go have a steak dinner, and he's going to drink 2 beers, and he's going to go out of his truck and he's going to go to bed. And I've actually had a driver with my first 6 months when I went back to Omaha. He elbowed me, and this is before they got their new offices and all that. Their office was down there at the truck office there in Omaha, and I had a driver elbow me, take me outside. Says, you don't need to tell them anything. Like I said, black and white. Don't ask me something if you don't want to know the truth.
Yeah, it sounds like you're an open book. I mean, that's fine.
He is. I know way too much about Tom that I'd like to know.
Yeah, Tim, what does Tom wear to bed after those 2 beers and that steak dinner? Do you know that?
A rabbit suit, smartasses.
Well, gentlemen, look, you guys have been absolutely great. This is exactly what I was hoping for. I would like to have more dispatchers and drivers on to talk a little bit about their relationship. And you know, this is, Tim, you brought this up to me. You said this would be a very relatable conversation. And I think that it is 100% to all the drivers listening. Get in touch with your dispatcher and come to me, because this is the kind of conversation, this is the kind of fun we can have on this podcast. I've been cleared green light for this type of stuff.
Perfect. Awesome. Happy to hear. I'd love to be back on sometime.
Absolutely, me too. You know, maybe a driver and dispatch and driver, or just two drivers on getting onto one dispatcher. You know.
Oh, I'd love that. A little bit of a gang up type tag team thing.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Just what we need here.
Two different drivers with the same dispatcher, and see and honestly see how if Tim really is treating everybody equally.
Tom, you are an unstoppable good idea machine, my friend. I'm writing all this down. We're going to make it happen for sure. All right.
You got to get me back on with Tim, and Tim's got to get another driver, because this is going to be fun.
All right, fellas. Well, thank you again for your time. That's Tim Krueger from JFL and H&M driver Tom Woods here on the H&M Trucking Podcast. Tom, you stay safe out there. Tim, have a great weekend. We'll be in touch with you guys, all right?
Sounds great. Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate y'all.
You ever get done with a conversation with somebody and your jaw hurts and the hot dogs on the back of your neck hurt from laughing so much? Because that's where I'm at right now after that interview with Tim Krueger and Tom Woods. And I really want to drive this point home. If you're a driver out there listening right now thinking, man, I would love to go on the podcast with my dispatcher and clear the air a little bit, have some fun, chat it up, talk about the relationship, talk about how we got from where we started to where we are now, any of those things. You want to do like Tom suggested there and get a couple of drivers on to kind of bully around a dispatcher a little bit? Hey, dispatchers, if you're listening, why don't you get a couple of dispatchers on that know the same driver and go after them for a little bit? Listen, I think that this will really highlight the types of relationships that are at work at H&M Trucking, and I love getting a little bit of a peek behind the curtain there. This company doesn't run like a well-oiled machine just because it does. There's a lot of work that goes into it. The first time I ever asked president of H&M, James Fonda, about the culture at H&M, he looked at me and he said, do you know how long that took to instill that culture? He's right. It took a long time and a lot of really good people working really hard to make sure the culture at H&M is what it is today. And we're here on this podcast to highlight that culture. I would love to talk to driver managers and drivers. Let's get you on here with somebody that you like to work with, somebody that you have a great rapport with, and let's hear some of the stories from out there, man. I know they happen every single day. There's a head scratcher. There's something to make you want to bang your head against the wall. There's something that'll make you laugh until you shed tears. I want to hear those stories on this podcast, all right? That's one of the reasons that we're here. Thank you all for being here for episode 34. It was a fun one. It was kind of a new feel, like a new spin on it, and I plan to keep that moving forward for as long as we can. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It will let you know every single time that we've got a new episode out and when it's out and when you can download it. And if you're one of those drivers or dispatchers that might want to get on the podcast with one of your buddies, please let us know. Interact with our social media. Interact with anything that you see that says the H&M Trucking Podcast on it. And if you can't find any of that stuff, just hit up Eve, hit up Tim Krueger. Any of those people will help you find me. And that's all you need to do to get on this podcast. I'm Marcus, your H&M. Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Thank you for listening to the H&M Trucking Podcast. Please leave a review, subscribe, and connect with Marcus over at the H&M Trucking social media channels. And if you're considering a job at H&M, find us at hmtrucking.com. Until next time, stay safe and ahead of the curve drivers.